Hello, I'm Tania Unsworth and I want to tell you about my latest book. Here it is. It's called The Time Traveller and the Tiger. And the thing about this book that I really want you to know is that it's an adventure story. I love adventure stories. I love the elements of danger in them, all those daring rescues and narrow escapes and characters getting out of one tricky situation only to find another one even worse just a few pages later. Adventure stories are often set in dangerous locations, the sort of places where it's easy to get lost, full of unseen pitfalls, and usually an evil villain or two, and at least one sinister plot. I wanted to put as much of that as I could into this book. It tells the story of a girl called Elsie, who, almost by accident, is sent back in time, 74 years, to India, where she meets her own great-uncle John when he's a boy of 12 years old. Elsie has a mission. She knows she has to stop Uncle John from doing something absolutely terrible, from making the biggest mistake of his life, in fact. Somehow, she has to stop him from shooting and killing a tiger. Of course, this is much easier said than done. For one thing, John is incredibly stubborn and doesn't believe a word she says. For another, she's in the middle of the Indian forest, which is an extremely dangerous place. Not only are there tigers there, but there are charging elephants and giant spiders and whitewater rapids and all sorts of perils like that. But it's not until Elsie, John and their friend Mandeep run into a group of evil trophy hunters that their troubles really begin. I'm going to read you a chapter from the book, towards the beginning of it. It's a point in the story where Elsie and John have been tracking a tiger. The trouble is they've got lost. And just after they realise they've got lost, they realise something else, which is even more scary. They think they've been tracking the tiger, but now they begin to wonder whether the tiger is tracking them. So, this is chapter 17. And they're standing there, Elsie and John, talking about what they're going to do. "It must have doubled back," John said. "Got behind us." "Do you think it could be following us?" "I don't know," John said, his knuckles white on the strap of his gun. "I don't know." At once, Elsie realised an obvious yet terrifying truth. It is one thing to be hunting a tiger, quite another when a tiger is hunting you. She had seen a tiger in a zoo once. It was walking along a path that ran down the side of its enclosure next to the fence. It must have walked that path 10,000 times before, because the grass was completely worn away. When it got to the end, it turned and came back down again, heading directly towards Elsie at the other side, pacing slowly, as if it carried the boredom of the whole world on its tawny shoulders. It reached the edge of the fence and turned once more, moving like water around a bend in a river. Elsie had known it would turn. There was nowhere else for it to go. A steel fence and a thick sheet of glass stood between her and the tiger. But for a split second, as she gazed at that massive form, it seemed as if the opposite would happen, that neither fence nor glass nor any power on earth could stand in the tiger's way. It would simply keep coming, terrible and unstoppable, as though it belonged to a world beyond all rules. Elsie stared at John, her heart shrivelling to a tiny knot in her chest. "What are we going to do?" she whispered. He swallowed, his throat contracting. "We have to go back," Elsie said. "We have to go back now." He nodded. At least we know the way, Elsie said. All we have to do is retrace our steps. He nodded again, then seemed to collect himself. No, he said. It's no use losing our heads and simply charging off. We have to think. What direction is the wind coming from? Elsie tried to concentrate. I don't think it's coming from anywhere, she said at last. It's just still. It can't be, John said. The air's always moving a bit. He licked the tip of his finger and held it up uncertainly. Mandeep told me how tigers hunt. They keep up wind. Why? So their prey doesn't catch their scent. Tigers usually attack from behind. So the worst thing you can do is walk in the direction that the wind is coming from. Why not walk in the opposite direction then? Because a tiger could circle around and wait to ambush you downwind. If that happened, you'd meet it head on. So what are you meant to do? Elsie's mouth had gone so dry that it was hard to get the words out. Our best bet is to keep the wind either to the right or the left of us, John said, nodding rapidly as if trying to convince himself. Right now I'm pretty sure it's coming from over there, so we can't take the direct route back. We'll have to zigzag a bit. If we do that, will the tiger give up? Of course not, John said, but it'll have to attack from the side. What difference will that make? John slid the rifle off his shoulder and held it ready. We'll have a sporting chance of seeing it coming, he said. Elsie wasn't exactly sure what a sporting chance consisted of, but whatever it was, it didn't sound nearly enough. At least he didn't say no chance at all, she thought, but it was useless. For once, even she couldn't make the best of it. She took off her hat and tried to wipe her clammy forehead. John said the tiger was a man-eater. He would have shot it in the clearing, only she'd stopped him. And now the tiger was hunting them. Elsie felt sick. She should have known. You weren't meant to change the past. That was the first rule of time travel. You never knew the trouble you might cause. Ready to go? John said. Elsie squeezed her eyes shut for a second, as if trying to will herself 74 years and several thousand miles away. Then she replaced the solar topi and took a deep breath. I'm ready. That's all I've got time to read today. So if you want to know what happens next, you'll have to read the rest for yourself. Thank you.